Take two. Welcome back, Joel. Thanks for coming again. I'm forever appreciative, and there's a chocolate video. Stop my timer. So we're going to be talking about this unit of competency is talking about participate in workplace health and safety, which is quite big actually. There's things around here that you look at and you think, oh, there's a risk and there's a risk and there's a risk. And you don't actually start thinking about that until you start. Well, I've done the WHS course, so you sort of look around, and everywhere I walk now it's like risk. Because in your day-to-day life you don't really think about it, because unless you've injured yourself. Excuse me. So the objectives today we're going to look at hazard identification, risk management, so common hazards and we're contextualising that with hiking and walking, and also just looking around, you walking from your home to here. What sort of things would you have seen along the way that's risky?
Well, I walked past driveways. There's a good chance that the car could have been coming in or out and I could have been hit.
Yep.
I walked under trees. Perhaps a branch could have fallen and hit me on the head.
Yep.
I don't know. Uneven footpaths.
Yep.
So a chance for tripping and falling, and anything can happen off that.
Yep. Oh, you're all over this.
Yeah. Apart from that, I struggle to see any other risks.
Yep. Do you know much about WHS?
Not from what's in books or anything. I just imagine don't do silly things. Will you right?
What's a silly thing?
Well, in the workplace, I don't know, you could be playing pranks on a co-worker, pulling the chair out as they're sitting down, putting unhealthy liquids in their mug or something like that to go to drink.
I'll tell you a story what we used to do. So when I was working on the children's ward in Launceston, what we used to do when people were leaving, we used to put them on a commode chair, sleep tape them, pour water on their head and powder, baby powder, and we put them in the lift and pressed all the buttons. It was very juvenile. Good one. So we're going to look at the risk assessment techniques. We're going to look at workplace procedures for hazard identification. We need to talk about WHS communication and consultations, and also the role of an HSR, which is a WHS representative. So you have your WHS workers. There'll be one on the council somewhere along the way. And we're going to contextualise that to a new member of our walking group. So essentially, we'll have a little look around here, and we'll also have a little talk about this. And they have a wonderful policy about it all, and it's interesting. It's really, really well written. So we'll be doing that just by talking, and also I bought a whole heap of stuff that I take with me. People joke that it's excessive, but we'll go through that as we do it. Random. Okay, so we've already talked about the WHS issues in here. There's your toilets, your water evacuation. Are you happy with that? You're quite comfortable there?
Yes, that's good.
You've got the chair of the day. So, what is a hazard?
Potential danger, I'd say.
Yep. So pretty much it's anything that can cause harm to you. So it could be, like as you said before, it could be an uneven footpath and you fall over. It could be something on the floor that you trip over, trip hazards, anything that will cause injury, and also the health and safety or well-being, damage to the environment, equipment or reputation of an organisation. It could be financial loss and breaches of the law. So if you think about the bouncy castle, it was sort of a nasty event. So in theory, from a WHS point of view, are you okay talking about this? Must be the fancy chair you've got. That's random.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a ghost in the building.
There is.
So she, just on that, so the story is, okay, did she do enough to stop the castle from blowing in the air, essentially? So from WHS point of view, she had 4 pegs, but the recommendation was 8. So even though, you know, in the end it was deemed that she hello. That's really strange. That's weird. Sit. That is bizarre. Okay. Weird. Hold on. There we go. Always a technical glitch. But in theory, from a WHS point of view, she should have actually followed the recommendations and had 8. Would it have made a difference? No. But technically, if she was in Queensland, under WH law, there she'd be in big trouble with a big fat fine because she didn't actually follow. And she also didn't have evidence of like the training. Okay. I'm just going to stop that a minute. That's really weird. Okay. That's really weird. Didn't do anything the last time, did it?
No.
That's weird.
Do you want to put the book behind it or something?
No, it'll be fine. It's just being a pillock just to wreck my presentation. That's all it is. Yeah, it should be right now. So have you heard about WorkSafe tests?
No.
No. Okay. So there's WorkSafe Australia, which is the big governing body for all the risks and hazards and tells you pretty much everything you need to do from code of conduct, code of first aid, you've got a builder's thing, you've got risk assessment forms. There are also, so from their definition, a hazard is anything that has potential to cause harm to people, property or the environment in the workplace. So the building industry have certain things, it's massive. If you Google it, you'll see all the codes, all the legislation, and it comes under the 2012 Act for WHS, and we're governed by that here in Tasmania and also at the federal level. And it can be, I'm distracted by that thing when I fall down. And also too, there's also levels of injury. So a minor injury, yep, you've stubbed your toe, wacky-do. But if you have a severe injury like death, near death, severe disability, or your leg gets chopped off, you actually are legally required to report that to WorkSafe tests, whereas all the minor injuries are managed in-house.
Yep.
Yep. So what types of hazards are there?
Just in general in the workplace?
Anywhere.
Like specific use cases or broad categories?
So okay, let's think about it. So you, even in here, we've got chemicals.
Right.
So we've got, anything can be a hazard. So it can be chemicals or cleaning products. It could be, like here, we've got all the different detergents to do cleaning. Even in your office, like when we had to do an assessment in our office health assessment, it was, it could be hand gel. People can be allergic to hand gel or different, there's actually a whole web page on the different types of chemicals and how you store them and how you manage them. Yeah, it's interesting. If you think of a service station, you've got sand and then you've got fuel, you've got oil. Oil goes on the floor, you slip on the oil. You're filling up your car and you've got your mobile phone on you, that can trigger an explosion. Interestingly, when we went through the Middle East, they left the car running on their mobile phones all the time. It was like, yes, agents, solvents, gases, could have a gas leak. We had an incident in ED a few years ago where the sewage just overflowed everywhere and there was water all over the floor. It actually was a code yellow, so an internal emergency, because we don't want excrement and all over the floor. It was interesting. And again, gases could be any sort of gas. The silent killer is something like CO2, carbon dioxide is a silent killer that comes off the old gas heaters. So, yeah. So there's physical hazards, so it could be, like you said, walking here, trees, but also machinery. If you don't know how to use your machinery properly and someone puts their hand in the conveyor belt or their clothing gets caught, so any type of machine, even a car. Yeah, noise as well, radiation, as in, like obviously if you're working in radiology, you've got a risk of radiation, but there are other jobs like being outdoors, you're exposed to UV light. So you can see how big, you can probably start to get a picture of how big it actually is and trying to manage those risks. Noise as well, that's why you often see the gardening people with their earmuffs, and certainly in aeroplanes, at airports, you see them with their hearing. Biological hazards, so COVID was a hazard. Any illness, ergonomic hazards is a huge one for office spaces. So I don't like sitting very long, it doesn't suit me. So at my office we used to have, I had a stand-up desk and then you had like a stress mat, because my back doesn't like sitting. But if you're at work and you're constantly in the wrong position, you'll end up with sore shoulders, sore fingers, RSI potentially. That's why I've got that. My mouse isn't ideal, but it works. I've got my computer at the right level. I've got my seat where I can, this is about right for me, sitting here like this. There can be stairs in your workplace as well. Yeah, so basically it's a poor workstation setup and repetitive movements. Like you're doing this all day or you're pressing a button all day long. That repetition can cause quite a lot of injury. And also the manual handling side of things. So, I mean, certainly in nursing, it's pretty obvious that we have lots of manual handling training. If you're constantly, this motion's quite a bad one. So even at home, I've got a front loader and I've got a really bad habit of going like that. And that only is bending, it's that twisting that actually causes the problem. And way back when, we didn't have all the hoisty equipment at work, so we had to lift. So you learn how to lift, and I'm just grateful I haven't ended up with a really bad back. And there are certain rules that you're not supposed to lift any more than 5 kilos with your arms stretched. You shouldn't be reaching up. I mean, if you look around here, I want to move that table, so how am I going to move that table? I'm just going to go and lift it up, and no, I'm not. I'm going to actually, I'll kind of borrow you to move the table. So dragging and pushing and pulling. So there's all these manual risks that we have to manage. It's a bit like too when you go to a building site. I mean, building's huge. I remember when I was down south last year watching the bridge being built. You'll notice I'll have enclosed fire escapes. It's just massive. I mean, they have to wear harnesses. They've got to have the right scaffolding. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, I mean, even here, the cleaners have their trolley. So even with an ergonomic trolley, the wheels have to work properly, because what you don't want is that to fall off and then you're gonna, And there's also the psychosocial hazards, stress, bullying, harassment, high job demands, and the psychosocial is hard to prove in terms of risk and damage to that. I mean, a classic example is the people who got affected by the bouncy castle thing. I mean, that caused a lot of PTSD in people. But it's that subtle stuff that's a lot harder to prove. Like, I worked with a colleague, and she was being bullied by one of the doctors. She's a nurse, and it was proven. However, the lawyer wrote a sentence that meant he got off, essentially. So it's that subtle kind of, what are you doing here, Joel? That subtle bullying that can be, or undertones, and pinching people on the bottom and all that kind of stuff. So these days, I mean, once upon a time, you can pretty much say anything to anybody, but now it's different. Like, we don't go around saying, oh, you're just a redhead so-and-so. And people are a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? We can't really do, I mean, you can't really do the stuff we used to do 20 years ago. You know, you can't wolf whistle a little girl, that kind of stuff, because it'll be seen as, you know, sexualisation these days. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But the psychosocial stuff's certainly getting bigger in our stressful world and, you know, at work. You know, at the Mersey, you're short-staffed, you're busy, you're doing double shifts. It's just a real burden on your mind. So, yeah, and I don't think people are as resilient as they used to be, but I don't know. So risk management is that clear? What hazards and things are?
Yes.
Yep. Sorry. So WorkSafe TAS define risk management in the context of WHS through the code of practice, how to manage work health and safety risks. So there's a big code over and above the legislation. So there's all sorts of different types of codes. The code provides practical guidance for all workplaces on how to meet the standards required under the Work Health and Safety Act and regulations. So it's pretty big. So what we need to do, so in the Northwest Club they put spot the hazard, assess the risk, fix the problem. So the first thing we need to do is identify a hazard. So if we're just sitting here, can you see any hazards?
Yep. Hot water. Well.
Yep.
Not sure.
Very good. Yep.
Yes. There's the toilets. Go in there and slip or.
Yep.
Could
Wet
be,
floor. Yep.
Could be soap. You know, could be allergic to that. I don't know. As you mentioned, any number of things.
Yep.
Could trip over a table or something, or as you were fixing the iPad, you could have. No, tripped over. And
Trip over a chair. And you've got your chemicals in there, so and also too, so if we're hiking, what sort of risks, what sort of hazards do you think there would be?
Well, obviously tripping over and hurting yourself, you've got wildlife, branches, falling things, weather. Yes, that falls under animals and wildlife. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Yes. No. Quite a few risks.
Yeah, there are. That's that. So just speaking of risk assessment, that's just one of the WHS forms. That's sort of that's just a template that you can use. Doesn't really work in the bush, unfortunately, that one. But they actually have, and that's another one. There's a hazard incident report form, and there's actually, this is from the actual TAS, WorkSafe TAS, you know, slips, trips and falls checklist. You know, you've got floors, free of ice, stairs, lighting, I forgot about lighting, footwear. You know, you're not going to wear thongs, well, unless you're an idiot. You're not going to wear thongs going up Craig Mountain like that other silly person did with no shoes. There's just certain things you're not going to do. And you can't, So risk is interesting because we assess the risk. So what are the maximum reasonable consequences for that risk? If I'm going to wear shoes and I'm going out in the hot weather, I'm going to burn my feet, or you can burn your feet on sand in some places. I've seen that happen before. So the MRC, so maximum reasonable consequence, is what's going to be the outcome if you come into that risk. So you've got 1 to 5 grades. So 1 is insignificant, you've banged your head, you've nicked your finger, you've got a splinter. You don't really need any treatment for it. Number 2, simple first aid. You might have a nasty bruise that might need some ice upon it. And then number 3 is moderate, so needing medical assessment. So that might be a sprain, a strain, asthma.
Yep.
Major is really serious injury. So we're not talking life and death here, we're talking broken leg, broken arm, nasty spider bite, snake bite. And then of course the 5th is the critical death, so permanent disability or serious injury. I don't know whether you were told, but there was one of the hikers earlier in the year was up in Warsaw, Jerusalem, and he actually just fell on a rock and had a compound fracture of his leg.
I did hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah, do you see the photos?
No.
Oof, you don't want to see the photos. It's pretty rare, yeah. Fortunately for him, he's now back walking and doing pretty well. But at the time, it's been interesting listening to the feedback that I've had from other members about that. And then what you need to do then is you need to control the risk, fix the problem and the control measures. Can you control falling over and breaking your leg on a mountain? No, you can't. But you might minimise that risk by not going in snow and ice. But then you can't predict it, can you? So the hierarchy of control, which is in your handout there somewhere, talks about, what does it look like? It looks like, there's a few different slides, but if you look at this one, so you want to fix the problem. So your low is undertake the activities, dixie controls. Medium, additional controls might be needed. High, additional controls will need to be in place before the activity is undertaken. And extreme is consider the alternatives. That's quite funny. And the thing is with the hierarchy of needs, the idea is, of control, is the top is elimination. Remove the risk. So it's not going to happen hiking. It's just not. If I'm sitting here and there's a snake there, I'm going to remove it. We'll get the snake catcher to remove the snake. Substitute. So the other week they were going to walk up, I can't remember now, and then the weather was awful, so they went waterfall hunting instead because the weather was awful. That makes sense. Engineering. What the group does and what we do in our little group too is we actually we'll go out with, they have what they call busy bee days where they go out and might cut back the track, or Parks and Wildlife will put in, like they put in a new ladder up at Minnow Falls recently, just to mitigate that risk. Admin is having like a policy. So that's great, they've got a really good policy, it's fantastic, only as good as the people who read it. So it's all great to have your policies and procedures, but it's just pointless. And interestingly, the lowest hierarchy of control is PPE, personal protective equipment. And it's interesting because when you contextualise that to nursing, you're thinking, I'm not looking after this COVID patient, I'm relying on these things to protect me. But they're also only as good as how they're used. So if you're not using it properly, it's pointless. So if you're hiking, you really can't eliminate anything really, per se. You can just not go and then there's no risk.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So in terms of reporting, they've got most organisations will have some sort of system where you can report a hazard. So there's two aspects to that. So you'll report a hazard, but if you've already had an incident because of the hazard, then you'll do an incident accident injury form. I know at work we used to have a thing called wristband. Some people have paper-based stuff. For the walking club, I've got like this injury form that goes to one of the members. I can't think who it is now off the top of my head. And I think they were saying they've had 8 in about 20 years, so not much. They would have had one for the broken leg. And they also need to be stored securely. And the idea being, the reason that we do the forms is because if there's an incident that keeps reoccurring, like someone's using an equipment at work, let's say, and there's 3 people who've had the same injury from that particular equipment, is it a problem with the equipment, is it a problem they're not trained, or what's the problem? So you start to see a pattern. And that also is also with near misses as well. So you really want to report those things. I mean, people just don't like doing it. Like, oh, now I'm getting in trouble, but actually you're not going to get in trouble. It's actually really, really valuable. Okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting. So once you've done the hazard form, they'll identify that. And then what you really need to do, okay, you're going to give it to them, say, hey, Joe Blogs, we were doing this. So are the controls that are in place working? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. You also need to consult your workers. because your workers on the floor who identify the hazards are the ones working with it. So you might think sitting up in your desk that you've got a really good control, but if you're not on the floor, you won't know. So it's a bit like QI, you know, you monitor for changes, you review the incident data, you should have a risk register as well, which big organisations will have a risk register. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. And I'll just, yeah, and I'll touch on some stuff in a minute, but I just want to talk about the role of a WHS rep. So a rep is officially known as in Tasmania it's known as an HSR, which is a health and safety rep, and they play a vital role in promoting and protecting the workplace safety and act as a crucial link between the employers and employees. So basically you'll have your rep, you might have a big organisation that's building site, they'll have, you know, someone controlling, going around and talking to the employers, a lot of their role is training, identifying training. Do they need training to evaluate that training? Make sure everything that they're meant to be doing happens, induction, that kind of thing. Really important to have all that documented too, because you're not going to send someone into a job without your proper induction. Have they got the right gear? Have they got knowledge of fire, safety, chemicals, all the risks that they need to know about, whether it's a white card at heights, painters with masks and things. They investigate, they also organise health and safety committees. So you have your HSO and you might have certain representatives from a certain part of the organisation. They'll investigate complaints, WHS complaints. They will inspect the workplace, and in particular, is the organisation doing enough? Have they got the controls in place? They monitor employer compliance. You know, if you're on a roof and you haven't got your harness on, you're going to get in trouble. You know, you could be. A friend of mine doesn't use scaffold, just puts milk crates and board up on the scaffold. Oh, it's cringe. This is cringe. They participate in the risk assessments and safety improvements as well. They also have the power to issue what's called a PIN, so provisional improvement notice, in the event that there's a breach. So if they come to work and all the scaffolds fallen off and something, they can actually say, hey, you've got to stop work, done, until that's fixed. And they direct the cessation of unsafe work in certain situations. So if they're doing the wrong thing, they can just stop that down.
Yep.
And the overarching, there's work-safe inspectors that are sort of up here, and they are an outside part of work-safe test, and they'll come in, and often the HSR will work with them to look at, say, common problems or a breach or managing risk. Yeah, it's interesting. And they are entitled to approve initial and ongoing training to understand the roles. I sort of touched on that one. So taking this back, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So taking it back to us. Okay. Now there's all sorts of. I found these on the website, which is actually really quite interesting. I mean, that's not going to apply to us. So you've got all sorts of different things. You've got hike planning. I stole this from Trail Hiking Australia, which is a really good Facebook group. You've got your first aid kit. You've got your day hike kit. And you've got your multi-day. So these are the sort of things that we can use to sort of guide what we need to take hiking, because at the end of the day, all we can really do in hiking is PPE. We've got a policy, yeah, but I didn't know it was there. I was just happened to be looking through it one day and went, oh yeah. So if you don't know what's there, you can't read it.
Yep.
And in here it talks about, it talks about the risk, and it talks about, basically what we've talked about today, pretty much. I mean, I think the thing is, I'll just go through what, I've got first aid kit, so in that I've got, you'll talk to 10 different people and you'll get 10 different things about what people should take on their hikes, and that's just the long and the short of it. I've got cleaning stuff, bandages, snake bandage, I've got ponchos, I've got pain relief, I've got a little pencil and whatnot. That weighs, it's actually quite weighty, it weighs about 800 grams because I've weighed it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff in there. But I'd like to think if I fell over or someone was injured that I could use, so I've got everything from basic. I'll tell you what is your friend is slings. If you have 2 or 3 slings, they work really, really well because they can work as a sling. You can also, if you break a leg, you can use a couple of those, use a pole, and then you use the sling, you make it into a long one and you can tie the pole to the leg to keep it immobile. And there's another fancy device, but I'm not going to put that in. Then our friend, satellite phone, or a PLB. PLBs are okay, but the problem with the PLB is they only set one location, whereas these are two-way. So everyone will talk to you about EPIRBs and blah, blah, blah. I've gone for this because it's a GPS device I can text. I mean, I pay for it, it's $20 a month, which allows me a certain amount of texts. Yeah. This is a little Garmin, and it means, and I've also got the PLB function on here as well. Yeah. Look, you hear it all. You see the trash you see on Facebook. Oh, they didn't have this, and they didn't have that. But really, what is really important is to have your own PLB of some form. At the very least, on the phone, you've got where is it? Emergency. I recommend to everybody who goes out bush is to download the emergency app. It looks like that, the little orange one.
Oh, yeah.
And what that does is it gives you the coordinates. So at the very least, you've got coordinates.
Yep.
Yeah. Really, really good. And there's also a little first aid app on here as well. I think it's about $20. But I mean, I've got no clue about all the stings and whatnot. Not so much in hiking. You've got snakes and you've got spiders. But you know, if you're in the top end, you've got all these other little weird things that bite you, and I've got no idea which one's which. So I mean, I might be a nurse, but I don't know everything. And so when you're thinking about the weather, what can we do? What can we do in terms of hiking to help protect us from the weather?
Well, the most obvious thing is an insulated rain jacket. Just one that's going to keep you warm, give you wind protection, and of course rain. We need to prepare for the conditions. So looking at the forecast of when and where we're going to walk.
Perfect.
And that'll dictate the equipment that we bring. Waterproof pants, thermals, additional layers, balaclavas, all that.
What about our skin? Sunscreen. We've got a risk of UV, so sunburn, and also hypothermia. So we want to have our sunscreen, hats. I'm really slack when it comes to hats. Some people glasses, sunglasses protect your eyes, and of course our sunscreen. Did I mention that? Yeah. Also, unexpected rain. You want to have dry bags.
Yep.
To keep everything dry. Nothing worse than wet. You know, wet clothing. Then we've got car compass to navigate us out. We've got doing a multi-day hike. You've got water purification. You can't always get a good, decent water. We'll have our gloves. The other thing I find really handy is these things. So if someone's hypothermic, freezing, you put these underneath your armpits and it helps warm people up. Because you do see a lot of people walking in shorts, which is great, but if they're only as good as, you know, in winter and you walk in shorts and you stop, then you're just freezing. I have my trusty little wallaby wool for blisters. I always carry a torch because you just don't know whether you're going to get stuck. And we have been stuck where we should have been back and we weren't, and I had this, which was lucky because someone really broke their leg. Trusty tool, trusty sunscreen of course. I've got my Bushman, if I'm a little allergic to it. I've got a whistle that's actually on my backpack. I've got my gel. And the obvious things, you know, you've got to have your right boots. You've got to have, you don't have to wear gaiters. I always wear gaiters because snakes, and also you just get scratched to death. Horrible. Depends. I mean, again, if you're walking on a like marijuana tree, you don't need gaiters really. Only for snakes. So what's that? Oh, they're my dry pants. I don't take dry pants unless I'm not going around usually. got my spare clothes, spare thermal, spare socks. I've got my trusty Patagonia and my little pack, my trusty pack. Got my pooper scooper. I don't need to carry 3 litres of water, but I've got a 3 litre which I always take just because if I haven't got a bottle, if I do get multi-day hike, I'll always take a bottle because that way you can fill the bottle and then fill your bladder. I've just bought a bigger pack. So I pack, it's only me personally, I pack to, oh, there's a banana. Didn't know that was in there. You know, I've got my winter woolies, I've got my gloves, I've got my beanie, I've got my toilet paper, and got my food, adequate food, got my dry bags. So I take, we were hiking with Paula once and she threatened to pretend that we couldn't get out and that could we survive the night. So the thing with hiking is that on a day walk, people become really complacent. I've seen people walking up Mount Murchison in trainers on a hot day with, you know, the girls have got their little skimpy shorts on with a t-shirt, with no hat and one small bottle of water. And I don't know if you've done that walk, and it's not easy, but it's not all that hard either. But there are some, and you're asking yourself for trouble if you're going to do that. And certainly when I finished 3 capes, I was watching them. It was hot, watching people come from Fortescue, just all the way up, and I just cringe when I look at that. But then I get bagged out for having a big heavy pack. So I take a pack assuming that I'm going to get stuck out for the night. So I don't mean sleeping bag, tent, but I've got a bivvy. Just like a little, it just keeps you warm basically. The wet weather gear because it's unpredictable. How many times have we gone out and it's a beautiful sunny day? I knew the people who got chopped off walls of Jerusalem last year with their little fella. I mean, they went out and the morning was beautiful, but they got snowed in and he almost died. So you really, So really all we can do from a WHS point of view is to do our best PPE, and it just highlights to me too how, you know, how dangerous hiking, well, how risky potentially the hiking would be, because you just can't. I fell over and got stitches walking in mud, and I trod on a log and it moved and I cracked my knee, and so you just can't predict it.
No.
But certainly from a hiking point of view too, it's the coordinators. You know, you really need to know your audience. That's the thing. You need to know sort of, you know, the people's abilities, and people also need to take responsibility for their own ability as well. So, but as I say, there are these certain, gaiters, tents, footwear. So we are putting ourselves at risk a little bit. So from a risk point of view, what do you think is the most important thing for hiking?
Minimising the risk.
And how do we do that?
Well, take a similar approach to you. We bring sufficient gear to cover bad outcomes. Yeah, that's good. Did you go up Mount Montgomery yesterday? We went out that way. We didn't reach the top. We just kind of walked around a bit.
And you know, a compass is your friend. They actually, once you know how to use them, it's actually really handy. Especially that little tip about the true north. Using, So really, I guess we have to look after ourselves, really, in the sense of it. I personally don't like walking alone, not because I need people, but I just think if I fall over, I might want to be stuck without anybody else. But that's just me. So how does that? Do you sort of have a bit of understanding about what WHS is?
Just identifying and minimising risks.
Mitigating the risk, what to do about the risk, and how would you report a risk?
Well, it instance, if I'm in the bush and I don't necessarily have to report the risk, but if I'm in the workplace, then I'll maybe go to whoever is the work health and safety coordinator or HR or my manager or supervisor.
You probably got some risk form on the computers anyway. There'd be something there.
Probably.
You just wouldn't have had to use it. But one thing you could do in terms of hiking it, I mean, if you've gone hiking somewhere and you see that the bridge is rotten, you might want to contact Parks and see who owns it and just sort of, bit like the replacing them, but Parks are pretty limited as well. But they've also got to mitigate their risk because I know people who pick ribbons stupidly around the place, but then Parks don't want people walking it, so they take the ribbons down because they haven't done a proper risk assessment. So yeah, Parks is a lot bigger than what we think, and they've got limited resources. So, but then what people do is they paint the trees. It's probably a bit naughty. Alrighty, I think we're about done. Do you have any questions?
I think I'm good, thank you.
You've learnt something?
Yes, quite a few things.
Well, that's good.